It's now time for the press review. Deepti Laurent is with me now for a look at the world headlines today. Hi, Deepti.
Hi, Jeannie.
You're going to start first with this missile launch from North Korea.
That's right. That missile launch is drawing a lot of reactions from the international press. This after North Korea said it could potentially reach the vicinity of Washington, D.C. Let's start with an article from ABC, that's the Australian broadcaster. Their Asian correspondent, Stan Grant, calls his latest missile launch a, quote, punch in the mouth from Kim Jong-un. He says whatever plan the U.S. had isn't working because clearly sanctions haven't worked, talks haven't been effective in deterring the North Koreans, while another paper, the U.S. conservative paper Washington Times, calls it a provocation. They call for more aggression from Donald Trump, saying now the public needs to see evidence that we're not on the precipice of destruction, and this could begin with courting the Chinese leader Xi Jinping, who is Donald Trump's golfing buddy, and needs to take Kim firm in hand.
Staying in Asia, Deepti, the Pope Francis has been slammed by some of the papers for refusing to mention the Rohingya people by name in his speech yesterday.
Well, it warranted the topic for the editorial from the U.S. tabloid The New York Post today, and what they call the Pope's, quote, sad silence on ethnic cleansing. The Post is actually pretty critical, saying it's a grim lesson in how to move Pope Francis away from his much vaunted willingness to speak truth to power. But he is getting some support from other papers, in particular The Guardian. One Guardian writer has leapt to his defense, saying, in any case, this trip to Burma had been in the works for several months, way before when the Vatican knew the real scale of the persecution that the Rohingya people are facing. And also, Joanna Moorhead brings to light the issue or the complexities of a papal visit, a diplomatic papal visit, because is he representing political interests or religious interests? Well, in this case, he's representing the Catholics, and his reason for excluding the word Rohingya was to protect the Catholic minority who could then become a target.
Deepti, you've also been focusing on French President Emmanuel Macron's maiden trip to Africa as president. What have the French and the press in Burkina Faso had to say about that trip so far?
Well, we've had some mixed reactions, Jeannie. Let's look at the French paper Le Monde. They actually call him a skillful orator, while Libération says, the left-leaning paper in France, calls it the Macron show and say it's pretty much one where he did succeed in that speech to 800 university students in the capital of Burkina Faso yesterday. Now, the Burkina paper Le Pays says it admires the courage and determination of Emmanuel Macron. However, his speech was not a rupture from the predecessors, as he's claimed. Rather, it was a continuation of France's political strategy in Africa. And let's end this segment with L'Humanité, which is a communist paper in France. They're really scathing. They call Macron's speech nothing but a new mask on Franco-African ties.
Deepti, on a more musical note now, you've got some Grammy news for us, and the nominations have come out, and for once, they're completely race-inclusive.
Hallelujah, you might say. The Grammy nominations have never been so dominated by color and diversity. That's what Slate says. In fact, for the first time in Grammy's history, an artist of color will definitely win Record of the Year because all the nominees are of color. This year's nominations honor artists like Jay-Z, Kendrick Lamar, Bruno Mars, in what's really a big focus on hip-hop and urban music, but also Latina music, because the Los Angeles Times says Despacito, the summer hit from Luis Fonsi and Daddy Yankee, could make music history by becoming the first non-English language tube to win a Grammy for Song of the Year. The last time this happened, Dwight Eisenhower was president, and it was in 1959 with the Italian hit Volare.
I remember that one. Volare. Okay, just to wrap up now, the Indian government has been known for doling out some swift punishments in its campaign to clean up the country, but it looks like they're going a bit too far with this last story you've got for us.
That's right. 8 donkeys have been jailed for 4 days. I did say that, donkeys. They ate some expensive sapling. These are young plants worth up to $1,000. The police in Uttar Pradesh complained that the donkeys had made a mess. They even did a classic perp walk with the donkeys, them walking in single file with their heads down. The owner of the animals pleaded for their release, but was refused until he found a local politician to plead his case and help Shawshank the donkeys out of prison.
Good thing they won't have their day in court. Glad to hear that. Deepti, thank you so much for that. Deepti Laurent with that look at today's press review. You can get a closer look